that story starts in September of 1996. And I am a very malleable 25-year-old boy. And when I say malleable, I mean that in a couple of ways. The first is physical. I am 6'6", and at that point, I am about 165 pounds. And malleable doesn't mean flexible. Okay, I can't touch my toes, but what I can do, and it's a little party trick, I give myself a big hug, and I can reach around, and my arms are long enough, and my chest is skinny enough that I can touch my middle fingers behind my back. Not anymore. But I'm also emotionally and socially malleable. I grew up in a small town without many friends and without any real male role models. And so when I moved away from that small town to move to Ottawa to go to university, I spent a lot of my time and a lot of my energy observing and trying to find out how I wanted to move through the world and how I wanted to be in the world. And that cuts both ways. When you're used to being rejected, you often go into rooms solely because you can be in them and they're not necessarily the right rooms for you. And so sometimes people took advantage of my good nature. But sometimes it worked. And sometimes I would learn. My friend Mike taught me that you're welcome in any room in which you can make someone laugh. And John told me that there are certain things that are so important that you should only do them if you can give yourself to them entirely. And my friend Matt taught me that 6 ice cubes was the perfect number of ice cubes for the medium peach drink at the Carleton University cafeteria. And these things were very important in total when the most that you learn from your own father is how it's easy to go through life unhappy if you're a misogynist piece of shit. And so I'm standing in this particular Saturday in September on the side of Highway 417. And beside me is the smoking hulk of a 1983 baby blue Buick LeSabre. And beside me and the Buick is my friend Jeremy. And over my head is a freshly hand-painted sign that reads, Montreal, ! Will pay cash, $, $. And you could say that I'm there partially because I am malleable. Jeremy is a charming risk taker. I don't know for a fact if he grew up rich, but I know that he goes through life on every tightrope without noticing that he's on a tightrope, because at no point in his life did he ever think that he would fall down. And I see tightropes everywhere. And I'm terrified of falling down. And so when he showed up at my house today in that Buick and it was making all of the rumbling noises, and I said, are you sure this thing is going to make it to Montreal and back tonight? And he said, yeah, no problem. I got malleable and I went in shotgun. There's a fresh painted sign over my head because even though Jeremy doesn't have the good sense to change the oil in the LeSabre, he knows how to plan for a hockey game. And there's a big game in Montreal tonight. Game 2 of the World Cup of Hockey, Canada versus USA. And Jeremy has packed Bristol board and Jeremy has packed sign paint, and Jeremy has packed face paint, and Jeremy has packed an entire bag of Canadian flags. And as we're standing there, anxiously looking at our watches with our signs over our head, I have this feeling wash over me, and it's a poor boy feeling. It's the feeling that I get when I've splurged on something that I can't really afford, and it's guilt, and it's a feeling of stupidity, and it's the feeling that's compounded by the fact that not only did I buy these hockey tickets that I can't afford, we're not even going to make it until puck drop. And then something brilliant happens. A gold-colored Toyota Camry slows down on the side of the highway with its blinkers on. And Jeremy and I can't believe our luck, and we run up to the gold Camry and we open the door, and inside is this handsome young guy, maybe a few years older than us, maybe 30. And he's got a dark tan and square white teeth. He kind of looks like if Drakkar Noir was a person. He's got one button too many opened up. For those of you of a certain age, Drakkar Noir, think like the analog version, like the pre-internet version of Axe body spray. It's like... Anyway, we explain to this man what our problem is, and he invites us to get into the car, and we get into the car, and the small talk starts, and his name is Francois, and he's in sales. Duh. He sells software to architects, and yes, this is a company car, and yeah, it's cool when your boss pays for your car, and no, under no circumstances will he consider taking any cash from us tonight. You guys spend it on beer at the game. And then there's kind of a lull in the conversation, and Francois looks, he's kind of bouncing in his seat, and were it not for the fact that we were two able-bodied white guys, this is kind of the feeling that I project myself into being if I were a woman traveling. Like, we're not going to die, we outnumber him. But he could very easily involve us in a conversation that could make us wish we were dead. And so, in the silence, he just barks out, "You know, boys, I know the secret to life." And I think, religious nut, flat earther, Amway. And he must sort of sense my body language. "You don't believe me?" No, Francois. I don't believe that a spray-tanned architectural software salesman has the secret to life. He says, "If you don't believe me, open the glove box." So I do. And as I do, a small avalanche of small pieces of paper falls out. Receipts, beer mats, tickets for the dry cleaner. And before I even have a time to contemplate what I'm seeing, Francois takes one hand off the steering wheel. He rips open the console. He reaches in and he grabs another fistful of paper. Business cards, bus transfers. "Each one of these is a girl," he says. And I look down at my feet and I pick one up, and it's true. Each individual piece of paper has a woman's first name on it and a phone number. And at that point in my life, I hadn't gotten one phone number in a bar. And I was sitting next to a guy who behaved like it was his job and that selling architectural software was just a side hustle. You know, boys, the secret is you have to look forward to being rejected. The secret is you have to treat every no like it gets you one no closer to the yes. 25-year-old me was in awe. Slack-jawed. I think Jeremy may have pumped his fist in the back seat. But the thing is, here, today, 51-year-old me has to admit, Francois may have been a misogynist piece of shit, but at least he was a misogynist piece of shit with an ethos. Because since my father died last year, I've had a lot of time to think about role models. And as a middle-aged man with children of my own, I've come by the learning really hard that people are not maps, they're mosaics. Sometimes we have to sift, nearly said shit again. We have to sift through the broken pieces of people to find the little bits of truth that we can emulate. And if you're lucky, sometimes you'll end up in a room where you make people laugh. And if you're lucky, sometimes you'll love some things so much that you'll want to give yourself to them completely. And if you're really lucky, if you don't give up, if you treat every no as getting you one step closer to the yes, maybe you'll get to the rink by puck drop. And maybe you'll get there with a few extra bucks in your pocket. Thank you.